Karen of Frankel coming to you to get you all drawing on another Friday afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We often end up with either sketchbooks with drawings in, the stuff that you've been practicing from tutorials, and sometimes it's really nice to share those things or indeed just frame them for yourself. And I've got a few hacks to share with you on how to do that easily, not spending a lot of money going to framers, getting them framed, and also not cutting up your precious books either, so that you can keep the work, the original work that you've got in your books, or if you've done it on a separate piece of paper, how to go ahead and frame them, how to use them with cards, how to create prints of them so that you can send them to other people or share them for yourself without having to take them out of your sketchbook. First thing I have to tell you is, how do you transfer things from your sketchbook? So this sketchbook I've had for a long, long time, and I use it for thumbnails, I use it for taking notes in workshops, I've got drawings in there, all sorts of things going on. Believe it or not, that was painted with plastic bags, lovely pictures like that. Often when we are doing workshops or when we are playing, we end up with some quite nice little things because we are not precious about it. So it's just a little sketch in a book. I use these a lot to figure out what I'm doing with my work, or I do studies. And I don't really want to cut these up to frame. I like them being in this book, and I can follow through with these references. So a couple of options for you. First of all, if you haven't got your own printer, scanner, that sort of combination, most places, I know certainly if you're in Australia, you can take it to a place like Officeworks and they can scan these items for you and print them out. Scanning is a good idea, and I will tell you why in a sec. If you have got your own printer, especially a color printer, they often come in 3-in-1 so that you can photocopy and you can scan and you can print what you've scanned or photocopied. So there are a number of options. The scanning is the first option. It's arguable what gives you the best quality, so for printing. You'll have to do a bit of experimenting yourself. Before you get things printed, follow what I'm going to tell you for today's tutorial. So this, for example, I used this in my introductory slide. This was an idea for a painting. I think that's quite nice. I quite like that. So you choose whether you're going to photocopy that, in which case you get a printer, you get a printout with that in color. You can literally take a photograph with your phone, with your camera, and use that digital photograph, and I'm going to show you what to do with it in Word, how you would use that to print out for the various things I've been telling you about. And what's the third one? So one was photocopy, one was take a photograph with your camera or your phone camera, and the third one is scanning. What you're wanting to do is to have a digital copy. So if you are going to photocopy, then you need to already know what size you're going to print things. So scanning and photographing, that will give you a digital copy, and that's the first thing that we are going to play with. You don't need perfect results. depending on what you want them for. So the highest quality print that you will want is if you are going to give somebody a print. So you want it to look really close to the original, so you need to take a good quality photograph or scan. Let me remind you that when you are using, let's see if I can go to my camera, if you can see that. Yep, so my camera is actually zoomed in on that picture. Make sure that your camera is as straight as it can be. I don't know if you can see the edges of the picture in there, so that when you take that picture, you don't get that effect where that line is too big and that line is too small. So try and have your camera as horizontal to your page as possible when you are taking a photograph. If you find that your camera, your phone is casting a shadow, then the best thing to do is to put that book up on a bookshelf, and then you can put your camera horizontal, not horizontal, vertical, but make it parallel to the page, and that way you won't get a shadow on the on your sketchbook when you take that photograph. These cards you can get from a lot of stationery shops. I know that I have bought them from places like Kmart and Target, and some of them come with 3 folds like that, but the ones I'm talking about have got an aperture there. They come in various sizes. There's a really enormous one. If you haven't got these sorts of cards, I'm going to show you how to do that as well. Now, the reason for 3 folds like that, what about if your drawings, your sketches in your book are not the right size for these cards? And not only for those cards, but sometimes you can buy just simple plain cards like that. This shape fits into a standard envelope. You often buy these plain cards and they come with their own envelope, or you can get yourself your own stiff card, right? So this comes from stationery shops. This is A5, so that's half of A4. You can use plain card. Make sure when you're making your cards that these are a little bit stiff. We don't want just printer paper. So that A5 size, which is half of your A4, folds into a very neat A6 card, and that fits in your standard envelope. So even if you don't have these fancy ones with the holes in it, don't worry, you can make these, and you don't even have to cut a hole in it. I will show you that. But getting back to what happens if you haven't got a picture that's the right size for that. First of all, once you have got your photograph digitized, you can make it smaller. In my word processor, I have got a couple of my of images that I've taken, and I have put them onto an A4 page. So I've just made that a bit smaller so you can see most of that on your screen. So you can change the size of this picture by dragging it, making it smaller, making it bigger. You can actually measure off your card, and if you go in to the size of that picture, you can actually put in how many centimeters high it is and how many centimeters wide it is. So even if it doesn't fit perfectly with the proportions of that card, so even if it's a square picture, I'm going to show you how we can put a square picture on in a sec. I have printed out that, and I've managed to feed through my printer this stiff card. And I've put that picture on the right hand side of this card. How do you find a picture that's going to fit in this aperture? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to open it out and you are going to move it around your picture that you've printed out. I did some printing the other day, just playing with some ink. So it can be the photocopy that you're looking at, it can be the photograph that you've taken or the scan, and you can move this around until you find something attractive. I've actually made for myself, so this is the same size as the cards, right? I've made myself a little frame so that I don't have to use the card all the time, and I can use that around and find a picture. I'm just showing you these on photographs. Obviously you're going to be using it on your photocopies or your printouts of your drawings. Okay, you can even take a picture of a large painting or drawing and bring that down to size. So let's say we've found a picture that we want to. I'm going to cut this up. What I'm going to do is I can trace around my frame. Okay, now don't cut it the same size as this aperture, the hole. So we want it to be, if you move that up a little bit, we want it to be a little bit smaller. Can you see how I'm making it smaller? Okay, I can use this as my template. Now you can watch the replay, and of course if you're watching the replay already, you can stop the video and start it and follow through. So what you can see there is a bigger piece. Now I usually use a knife. Now let me tell you, this is one of my favorite things. I know this is getting a bit crafty. Look at all these bits and pieces that I've got. It is very helpful to have one of these mats. They are, there's a name for them because they self-seal, so you don't get left with a big cut in it until you've used it over and over and over again. So I'm going to take that small line, so you will then come and cut your picture out. Now of course you can use scissors. This doesn't have to be overly neat. You'll see why in a sec. I prefer using a blade and a knife. Let me just say, don't use plastic or wooden rulers. Use a metal ruler, because sometimes when you're cutting, this will cut into the plastic or the wood. So my blade is quite sharp. You will of course find what you like to use. So I've cut out the picture that I'm going to use. In this case, it's just part of that that picture, and you will see that when you put a frame on things, things become much more exciting. So with these cards that are threefold, what they are for is, so make sure that you're using the correct side, right? So that folds evenly there, and it's that side that's going to be our top. The reason for the threefold is we're going to stick the picture down there. We're going to stick that at the back, and when it folds we have a pretty picture in the front and we can't see the mess that is behind. You can also, by the way, choose a landscape picture and then have your card that way. I've put that on the wrong side, and if you put it on the wrong side, the card won't fold properly. So I'm going to turn that round. Depends which way, of course, you want your picture to be. And this is how you do it. Now, for the next bit, you need to purchase some double-sided tape. These are available, have been available for a long time in all sorts of craft stores. Depending on what you use it for card making, I prefer the wider one, and you'll see why in a second. Can you see that that piece is fitting on the inside there? Why do I like the wide one? And I'm going to show you why. It's because I can put it over the edge so that this is now taped down a little bit onto the card. Can you see that I've made it inside the edge? You do not have to tape all the way around. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. And you'll see why you're using double-sided tape and not single-sided in a sec. So the one side of the tape I'm using to tape the picture in place. Can you see that it is not over the fold? It's still within that area. This is old tape. It's coming off very easily. I don't know if it's going to work. Let's just see. And it has a dual purpose. So I am... Now, which way was it? It's that way because we want to do that. Yes? Yes. Now we take the top bits off. And I can see my fingers are a bit dirty there. It doesn't matter. Sometimes it's a bit difficult to get the top off. And now that double-sided tape is going to be used slowly. You start at the folded side. Is going to be used to hold down that flap, and we've got a beautiful card. Okay, so that's your first type of card. I like to sign just in the corner with my initials, so don't be shy of that. Somebody would be very delighted to get that card. Now, what do you do if your card does not have an aperture in it? It's quite simple. If you've got your picture that's the right size, this time you're going to cut it smaller, so you can still use this to find the size, but you're actually going to draw around there now. Draw around it, cut that out, center it on your card, you put some tape on the back and you put it on. But I'm not going to do it with the correct size one, because I want to show you what to do if you've got one that is smaller. So let's see that one. It didn't print properly. Can you see that it hasn't got the rest of the picture? So I'm going to use that one to show you how it works. If the proportion of your picture is not the same as the proportion of the card, because most of us don't do sketches that are exactly the same proportion unless you've set out to do that. So I'm going to cut this out exactly as it is. And this little hack, this little trick is going to be repeated when I do the framing for you. When I talk to you about finding framing, because this is all about doing this reasonably cheaply and easily, and we don't, unless you've got a beautiful picture that you want to spend money on, which I hope you do have, and you want to get it framed professionally, that's great. But there are lots of frames that are available to buy from $2 shops, from hardware stores, from all different places. Okay, so what you do with a picture that is not the same proportion as your card is, that's called weighting. W-E-I-G-H-T, weight as in that, and not weight as in W-A-I-T. And can you see that I've tried to put this piece so that that and that and that have got the same, more or less the same size, but there's a big area at the bottom. Now you can leave that area, you can use that to write happy birthday or congratulations, you can do all those sorts of things. Now let me show you the easy way, again with your double-sided tape. You can use thinner double-sided tape if you wish for this, because we're not using the double side. I'm not going to bother, because it's such a small picture, I'm not going to bother to put this right to the edge. Okay, now here's a good trick. I'm only going to peel one of them off. So that's a sticky one, that's still got the tape on, it's not sticky. And I'm going to keep the sticky one not down, I'm going to keep it up in the air a little bit, and I'm just going to move the top around until I'm satisfied. If you want to, you can measure where to put it, but once I'm satisfied that this, can you see I can move that around because it's still got the tape on? Once I'm satisfied that it's in the right place and it's straight, I'm using my eye, then I hold down the one that can move, and I stick down the one that, where the sticky tape was working, and you can see that is now lifted off. I can now peel off that tape. I'm trying to peel it off without taking the sticky part off the back. So I've just peeled it off. Again, you go from the folded side, you don't just stick that down in case it's still creased up, and you put that down. And you try to remember not to put it upside down, make sure that the card is correct. So that's a lovely tiny little card, okay? You didn't need to put the picture exactly as it was, so that worked. I could have taken this one that also printed crooked. I could look for a picture there. That one looks quite nice. I could trace it off with my pencil that I keep losing. So you can see how even ones that don't print properly, you can quickly get a little picture and cut it out and stick it on. Okay, now there is one more way in which you can make your cards, and that's what I tried to do. Just finished that. So with scissors, I find that I go a little bit crooked. Just show you on the back there. Look how pretty that is. So you don't know how pretty your work's going to be until you've put that little frame around it. What I did with this piece is I deliberately moved my image onto the right hand side. And the reason I did that, so I've made that one a little bit small, I must admit. So You could make it bigger than that. You can make it the same size as that. Remember, you can see the size on Word. You can also crop your photographs to the right size. And the reason I did that, the reason I printed it on this nice piece of card is because I'm going to turn this directly into a card. Now, you can't do it with this one because when you fold it, it's going to open up the wrong side. So remember that you need to have your picture on the right side so that it can fold into a card. If you want to, you can go, oh, it's 6 millimeters there, therefore I want 6 millimeters there. Or maybe I want to make it big on that side. So on the cutting mat, you've got straight edges. So I've now just put that against the straight edge there so that when I put my ruler down, I can put it against the straight edge as well. And I know that I'm going to cut straight. Okay, so I didn't measure when I printed that photograph out, but you can see the process, and you can get things to make creases in the card to make it look better, and all of those sorts of things that come on craft. And you can see I've got a lovely little card there, and it's actually printed on the card. I don't mind having extra down at the bottom and that not being the same there, but I'm not mad about the fact that it's too big on that side is bigger than that side. You don't have to measure with a ruler. I find it easier to take a scrap piece of paper and go, it's that side there, and therefore, now I should be using a pencil, but I'm not. Obviously, I don't want that mark on there. So I've trimmed it off. And there's your card with it actually printed on. Now, one more thing to show you. And this is framing with bought frames. Now, if you've got an IKEA where you are, IKEA have these frames, all different sizes. Now, there are two things that I need to show you. This frame has come from a framer, three things. And what happens, sometimes framers have got offcuts of these frames and they make frames like this for you to buy. Now you can see this one does not have a mat. A mat is this piece that goes over your work like you can see in that frame. So remember that sometimes you don't get a mat, but there's an answer for that as well. I'm going to show you with this mat, which is the same size as that. So you can take the frame out, you can put it over your work that has been printed. Remember, if you want to, you can use an original like I've used there. This watercolor, that will make quite a nice little watercolor on its own if I don't want to use that whole frame. So this is a similar trick to when we did the card with the mount on. So you would measure where it is. In fact, you can cut it out to be the same size as the mount so that it fits in your frame. You stick it down with your double-sided tape in there and you have a pretty picture. So that one's pretty easy. It's very similar to what we did with the card. What you can also do, if you find that you want to use the whole picture and you don't want to use the mount, okay, so let's say that one is quite pretty there, but let's say I want to put that whole thing in that frame. Okay, so what you then do is you open up the frame. So it's similar, you're just using the frame instead of the mount to choose where your picture is. These frames come with a little hanger like that, or a stand. There's lots of different ways. If you're in Australia, Spotlight have got really nice frames. So if you want the whole picture and you don't want to put it inside that frame, I'm going to cut it exactly the same size as the frame. I'm being a bit rough and ready here. You're going to take a lot more care. And you can see that the frame has to have a little lip on it, otherwise the glass would slip out. So can you see that there's a tiny little lip there so that the glass doesn't fall out? You put your picture, I made it a bit big, then you put that back and you end up with the picture without a mount. So to go, if we wanted that in the mount, okay, so you put the mount in, you put your picture on, and you put the back in, and you end up, that looks quite cute. In fact, that looks better with the mount. Okay, what happens, I've got an answer for everything. What happens if your picture is somewhere in between? It's not quite big enough to fit in, I can't get it out. It's not quite big enough to fit the whole frame, but it's too big for the mount and you want more of that picture in. Well, there's an answer to that as well, and that's called a floating picture, and this is what you would use as well if you had a picture that wasn't the correct size for your frame. So this comes from just some mixed media, mucking around. Let's say that's the size of your picture, but you can't find a frame that is perfect size for that. So this is the same trick that I taught you with the card. You would place it so the sides are all equal and the bottom is weighted. The bottom has the extra. And you stick it to that backing board the same way as we stuck that piece on the card earlier, this one. Okay, so it's exactly the same procedure. If your frame happens to have a mount, what you would do is you would still take your picture. So let's say my picture was too small for the frame. Let's just cut this piece, this one out. Another experimental piece when I was playing with watercolor. So let's say it's too big for the mount. Now, you wouldn't cut it. You can cut it as loosely as that if you want, if you're going to put it under a mount. Look how just anything looks so cool in there. If, however, you're going to put it on top, you need to cut it straight. And so you use the same trick that we used for that card, and you mount it on top of this so that it's floating there, and then you don't have to worry about that size. You can do that and use the same technique to stick it. So put a bit there, a bit there, a bit there, a bit there. Only peel off one. Find out where it goes with the stuff that's not peeled. Stick the sticky one down, and then you can lift it up and unpeel the others. Let's see how that looks. I'm not gonna stick it down. I just want to see how good it looks in the frame. I've put it a bit crooked there, but you can see that the background is still there. See the little dog that I was drawing last time? Yeah, so that was just for my demonstration. Try it. Okay, so this one I don't mind cutting directly. I might need to find a square card to put it on, or maybe I could cut the whole thing out and stick it on. There's all sorts of ways in which you can use these things. So that might look really very cute on there if I'd cut it all out. And I could use that as a birthday card. So even if you've printed it off, it looks fantastic. Pop a frame on it and you've got a card. Take your little mount, take the mount out of the frame if you've bought a frame, and see what you can find. You can color that in, you can put watercolor on it. That was an exercise we did. That was an exercise. Maybe just that little corner would look fantastic. And somebody would be absolutely delighted to get an original gift card. I hope you've enjoyed that practical way of using your drawings so that you photocopy them, you photograph or you scan, or you take an original and pop it on a card. See what happens. People will love them and really enjoy your work. So I am looking forward to seeing what you produce. Send me some pictures of some cards and framed work that you've produced. I'd love to see them, and I will see you all next week. Karen Frankel signing out and saying, get drawing. Bye-bye.